Have you ever felt like you can't stop chasing someone's approval, even when they're critical, dismissive, or avoidant?
That's not weakness. It's actually your brain responding the same way it does to a slot machine, craving the next unpredictable win. And today, we're going to show you how to break that cycle.
Hi, we're Tehrina and Joel Terry. We're licensed therapists, and our topic today actually came straight from you. One of our viewers shared that they're in a relationship with a partner who's extremely avoidant, dismissive, and critical, yet they constantly seek validation from them and can't walk away.
That question really struck us because it captures the exact cycle so many people get caught up in. The harder someone is to please, the more we crave their approval.
So today we're unpacking this using internal family systems therapy. And if you missed our recent video series where we introduced this framework, here's what you need to know. We all have different parts, and every part has a positive intent, even when its actions feel counterproductive.
Manager parts work proactively to protect us from harm and prevent painful experiences from overwhelming us. Firefighter parts emerge when managers can't prevent pain, and they work to divert attention away from that hurt. And exile parts carry our pain, fear, and unmet needs, often from childhood experiences.
Then there's your capital S self. Self is not a part, but your core essence that naturally has the qualities of curiosity, compassion, calmness, and clarity. Self is always there and can't be damaged. It knows how to heal and lead your parts.
This is where most people get stuck, thinking they're desperate, when really their brain is wired to crave the very person who withholds the most.
So let's get really honest about what's happening when you find yourself constantly seeking this approval.
This isn't about low self-esteem or being desperate. This is about how your brain responds to intermittent reinforcement, the most powerful conditioning schedule known to psychology.
When someone gives you validation unpredictably, sometimes critical, sometimes kind, your brain treats their approval like a slot machine. The occasional win of getting their praise becomes incredibly powerful because it's so rare. Let's look at our commenter's situation. There was someone who is both avoidant and critical. Their manager parts are probably working overtime trying to figure out the right way to be to finally earn consistent approval from their partner.
Meanwhile, their exiled parts, those young parts that just want to be loved and seen, are getting the message that if they could just be good enough, smart enough, or different enough, this person would finally give them the love they're seeking.
But here's what makes this particularly painful. Critical people often become more critical when you try harder to please them. It's like your efforts to earn validation actually trigger their avoidance or their own protective parts. If you've experienced the pain of this cycle, walking on eggshells around someone whose approval you desperately want, give this video a like. It helps others who are caught in the same cycle find the content, and it tells them they're not alone.
Here's where being intelligent actually makes this pattern more likely, not less.
Smart people are excellent problem solvers. When faced with someone who's hard to please, your manager part thinks, this is just another puzzle to solve. If I can figure out exactly what they want, I can get the validation I need.
So you might start analyzing their moods, adjusting your behavior, or trying to anticipate their needs. Each small moment of approval feels like evidence that you're getting closer to cracking the code.
Take Jordan, for example. Jordan's partner, Reese, rarely expressed appreciation. But one night, Jordan cooked Reese's favorite meal after a particularly stressful workday. And Reese was unusually affectionate and grateful. Jordan's manager parts filed this away as, see, the key is being more attuned to their needs.
But what Jordan's manager parts missed is that Reese's occasional appreciation wasn't because Jordan had figured out the right formula. It was just intermittent reinforcement, unpredictable rewards that actually strengthen the seeking behavior.
The more intelligent you are, the more elaborate strategies your manager parts can create to try to earn validation from someone who's fundamentally not able or willing to give it consistently.
Have you noticed yourself trying to solve a critical or avoidant partner like a puzzle? Share in the comments. Recognizing this pattern is the first step towards freedom from it and may help someone else recognize it as well.
For most people, this validation-seeking pattern didn't start with romantic partners or friends. It started much earlier.
Many adults who find themselves chasing approval from withholding people had childhood experiences with caregivers who were inconsistent with love and attention.
Maybe you had a parent who was warm and engaged sometimes, but cold and distant when they were stressed or overwhelmed. Your young parts learned that love was possible because you'd experienced it, but it required being exactly the right way at exactly the right time.
Or perhaps you had a caregiver who only showed pride or affection when you achieved something impressive, leaving your exiled parts believing that your worth was tied to performance rather than simply existing.
And these early experiences teach your nervous system that inconsistent love is normal love. So when you encounter someone as an adult who gives validation sporadically, it feels familiar, like home, even though it's painful.
Your manager parts think, I know how to handle this dynamic. I just need to be better, more helpful, more accommodating, and eventually I'll earn the consistent love I'm seeking.
But here's what your parts might not yet understand. You're trying to use adult strategies to heal wounds that your exile parts have been carrying often since childhood. And those strategies will always leave your exiles feeling unsatisfied because exiles need something different. They need to be welcomed, understood, and unburdened from the painful beliefs they've been carrying. And if you're recognizing this childhood pattern and want to understand which specific exiled parts carry these old wounds, our Meet Your Inner Team assessment helps you identify how different parts developed different protective roles. It's free and it's in the description.
This isn't just emotional, it's chemical. Your brain on intermittent validation looks a lot like your brain on cocaine withdrawal. So here's what's happening in your brain when you're caught in this cycle. Because understanding the neuroscience can help your manager part see why willpower alone won't solve this.
When someone withholds validation, it activates your attachment system, the same neural networks that kept you connected to caregivers for survival when you were young.
Dr. Helen Fisher's research shows that being ignored or rejected by someone you're attached to triggers the same brain regions activated by cocaine withdrawal. The anterior cingulate cortex and right ventral striatum light up, creating genuine craving for their attention.
This is why our commenter said they have the hardest time walking away, despite knowing that their partner is extremely critical. It's not weakness, it's neurochemistry.
Additionally, when someone is unpredictably critical and occasionally validating, it creates what psychologists call a variable ratio reinforcement schedule. Casino games use this same principle. The uncertainty of when the next win will come makes the behavior incredibly persistent.
Meanwhile, your exiled parts are interpreting the criticism not as information about the other person's limitations, but as evidence about your own worth. So the more they criticize, the more desperately your parts want to prove you're worthy of their approval.
Dr. Kristen Neff's research on self-compassion shows that people caught in these cycles often have what she calls over-identification with criticism, meaning they take other people's inability to give validation as proof of their own inadequacy rather than information about the other person's capacity.
Ever wondered why you obsess over their texts 1 minute and then numb out with Netflix the next? That's your parts at war. And this is when it gets even more painful, because when your manager parts can't prevent the rejection and criticism, your firefighter parts often jump in.
Remember, firefighter parts try to douse the inner flames of feeling as quickly as possible when exile parts become overwhelmed. They don't plan strategically like managers. They just want the emotional pain to stop right now.
So when your exile parts feel flooded with the pain of being criticized or dismissed by someone whose validation you've been seeking, firefighter parts might activate to distract from that unbearable feeling.
This could look like binge watching shows to numb out, compulsive social media scrolling to distract from rejection, or even substance use to escape the shame your exile parts are carrying. Some people might throw themselves into work or exercise obsessively, anything to avoid feeling the full weight of that dismissal.
The tricky part is that while your manager parts are still strategizing about how to win this person's approval, your firefighter parts are simultaneously trying to help you escape from caring about their opinion at all.
This creates an internal war in which a part of you is desperately seeking their validation, while another part is trying to numb you out from wanting it. It's exhausting because your parts are working at cross purposes.
So you might find yourself obsessing over their text during the day. This is a manager part strategizing, while also finding yourself mindlessly scrolling your phone for hours that night, which is firefighter parts trying to escape the pain of that obsession.
This is why validation addiction feels so chaotic internally. You have parts pulling you towards the person and parts trying to pull you away from the pain of wanting them, all while your exile parts just want you to feel worthy of love. If you're recognizing this internal tug-of-war between seeking someone's approval and trying to escape from caring about it, you're experiencing the natural protective response of different parts trying to keep your exile parts safe.
The way out isn't working harder for their approval. It's realizing you've been asking for water from an empty well.
So how do you break free from this cycle without your parts feeling like you're abandoning the quest for love altogether? The answer isn't to convince your manager parts that this person isn't worth seeking validation from. It's to help all of your parts understand that self can find healthier sources of validation your exiled parts truly need.
This starts with self getting curious about what your manager parts are really trying to accomplish. From self-leadership, you might ask with curiosity, I notice a part that's working really hard to figure out how to get them to appreciate me. What is this part hoping will happen if it succeeds?
Often, manager parts will share they believe getting this specific person's validation will prove you're finally worthy of love, or that it will heal the old wound that your exile parts carry from when love felt conditional and scarce.
But self can help these manager parts understand that trying to earn validation from someone who struggles to give it is like trying to get water from an empty well. It's not that you don't deserve water, it's that you're looking in the wrong place.
With firefighter parts, self might get curious. I see that there's a part that gets activated when they're critical or distant and tries to numb out or distract from those painful feelings. What does this part need me to know about what it's trying to protect?
Firefighter parts might share that when your exile parts feel the crushing pain of rejection or criticism, they can't bear to let those exile parts stay flooded with that agony. So they jump in with whatever will make the emotional fire stop. Scrolling social media for hours, binge watching shows, or other behaviors that help you disassociate from the pain.
Self can help these firefighter parts understand that while their impulse to protect your exile parts from overwhelming pain makes complete sense, these numbing strategies often prevent the deeper healing that your exile parts actually need.
The healing happens when self starts intentionally creating relationships where validation flows naturally rather than having to be earned through perfect behavior.
And this might mean spending more time with friends or family members who see and appreciate you as you are, rather than pouring all of your emotional energy into the one person who struggles to give you what you need.
It also means self learning to validate your own exiled parts instead of outsourcing that job to people who aren't capable of doing it well.
For our commenter in the relationship with the critical dismissive partner, this might look like self helping their manager parts redirect their problem-solving skills towards identifying what they actually need in a relationship, rather than trying to become the right person for someone who can't offer emotional presence.
If you're recognizing these patterns and want to get clearer about what you actually need in relationships versus what you've been trying to earn, our must-haves and deal breakers guide will help you identify your core relationship needs. It's free and it's linked in the description.
The goal isn't to never care about anyone's opinion of you. It's to care most about the opinions of people who are capable of seeing and valuing you for who you actually are. Let's do a deep dive into the research behind why seeking validation from critical people is so psychologically compelling. Dr. B.F. Skinner's work on operant conditioning revealed that intermittent reinforcement, which is simply unpredictable rewards, creates the strongest behavioral patterns. This is why casino gambling is so addictive and why inconsistent validation is more compelling than consistent criticism or consistent praise. Brain imaging studies by Dr. Mauricio Delgado show that unpredictable rewards activate the dopamine system more intensely than predictable ones. When someone rarely validates you but occasionally does, your brain releases more dopamine than it would if they praised you consistently. Dr. Sue Johnson's research on attachment injuries reveals that when someone important to us is emotionally unavailable, it activates what she calls protest behaviors, which are desperate attempts to restore connection, but they often backfire and push the other person further away. If you want more understanding of protest behaviors and how to change them, check out this video. Studies on trauma bonding by Dr. Patrick Carnes demonstrate that relationships involving alternating criticism and affection create particularly strong psychological bonds because the relief of receiving kindness after criticism feels disproportionately powerful. Most significantly, Dr. John Gottman's research shows that when people who grew up with inconsistent emotional availability from caregivers are actually more attracted to partners who recreate this dynamic, not because they enjoy the pain, but because their nervous system recognizes the pattern as familiar. While we don't know the family background of this commenter, this may explain why they have such a hard time walking away, despite knowing their partner is extremely critical. Their nervous system may have learned to interpret this dynamic as love, even though they intellectually know it's harmful.
So let's get to the heart of it. If you recognized yourself in our commenter's question about constantly seeking validation from someone who withholds it, I want you to understand something important. You're not weak, desperate, or pathetic. Your manager parts developed this strategy because at some point in your life, earning someone's approval was actually necessary for your emotional or even physical survival. These parts learned to work incredibly hard to maintain connection with people who were important to you, but who struggled to give consistent love. The exile parts of you that crave this validation aren't asking for too much. They're carrying the basic human need to be seen, valued, and loved for who you are. But they may also be carrying burdens, painful beliefs like, I'm only worthy when I'm perfect, or if someone doesn't approve of me, I'm not lovable. Here's what those parts might not understand yet. Trying to earn validation from someone who struggles to give it is like trying to convince someone who's colorblind to see red. It's not that red doesn't exist or isn't beautiful. It's that they literally don't have the capacity to perceive it. Your intelligence, your caring, your efforts to understand and accommodate their needs, none of these will create emotional capacity in someone who doesn't have it to give. This doesn't mean your exile parts are unworthy of the validation they're seeking. It means they're seeking it from someone who can't provide what they need to feel truly valued and secure. When self leads with curiosity and compassion, your manager parts can use their problem-solving abilities not to figure out how to earn love from people who struggle to give it, but to identify and nurture connections with people who can naturally offer the appreciation your parts deserve. Your firefighter parts don't need to numb out or escape when someone is critical or distant. Self can help them understand that when your exile parts feel the pain of rejection, there are healthier ways to care for those wounded parts than immediately distracting from or numbing those feelings. Someone else's inability to offer consistent kindness isn't information about your exile part's worth. It's information about that person's capacity. The validation your exile parts are seeking isn't wrong or too much to ask for. They're just seeking it from someone who can't give what they don't have. And that's not something you can solve by being more perfect. It's a capacity issue that only they can address through their own growth and healing.
Don't click away just yet, because if this video spoke to you, Friday's video goes even deeper. We're talking about how toxic relationships can actually change your attachment style. And that's crucial to understand if you've ever felt more anxious or avoidant after a breakup.
Seriously, hit that notification bell so you don't miss that one. Because if you've ever wondered, was I always this way or did that relationship change me? This video will give you clarity. And if you want to continue your healing journey right now, watch this next.
Subscribe and take care of your heart.
And remember, you're not alone. Healing happens in relationship, not in isolation. And we're all in this together.
Why does he pops up? Hi, Bug. Yeah, you're checking out that camera.